All right. Up until this point, the emphasis of all the lessons that we've looked at has been on those structured, more the structured times of prayer when you're scheduled. That's the word I was trying to get to. Structured, scheduled times of prayer where you've said, tomorrow morning or every afternoon, every time at 3, whatever it was, when I pray, giving you tools to use at those times. Today, the focus is going to be a little bit more. We're going to shift the focus more to those spontaneous prayers, or some would call them flair prayers or way of life prayers, and helping to put some things in place for those. So it is still kind of structured, and you'll see that, but it's not really like your sit down prayer time. We're going to look at monuments to prayer. So let's go ahead and pray, and we'll get started. Heavenly Father, I thank you tonight for this time to look into your word and share it with others. God, I pray for those who are watching this video now and who will watch in the future that you will bless them, just that their prayer life might continue to grow. God, that you would be pleased in that and they would receive benefit from it. God, we love you and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So, one of the quotes that I came across in study for this, I thought it was a fitting way to start. It says, "What is important to a nation? Look at her monuments. In our country, we raise monuments to political leaders like the Washington Monument, the Lincoln and Jefferson Memorials, and the presidential libraries. We build shrines to honor wars and those who died in war, like World War II Memorial or the Vietnam Wall. In this author's town, they honor veterans and even sports teams for their victories. Monuments show us our values and priorities. Every monument, great or small, requires an investment of time and money to build. We only invest in those things that are important to us." So we're not looking necessarily at monuments at the exact same way that a country would, but it's a good thought to start with, that the monuments that we have are there because something is valuable to us. You don't build a monument to something that's not valuable. That is at the heart, or at least to an extent, at the heart of the controversy in our nation in the last couple of months of the monuments to come down. And even one of the articles, 2017, I think it was another big year for pulling monuments down because they represent something that should be, or they should represent something valuable to us, at least something for us to remember, that we want to remember. So I'm going to talk tonight about setting up monuments to prayer, for prayer, and let me just give you 3 reasons why. First, number 1, because we are prone to forget. On a simple level, just think how many times, and this is kind of more along the lines where I'm really going with this, but how often do you tell someone they're in church on Sunday and someone says, "Please pray for me, I have a job interview on Wednesday," or "Please pray for me, I'm going through this difficult time," or "Please pray for me, I'm trying to share the gospel with my friend at work." They ask you to pray, and what do you say? "I'll pray for you." Now, then we all know the problem, the dilemma we enter in, because we say that we'll pray, and how often do we forget? Some have come up with the answer to that just to being, instead of saying "I'll pray for you," pray with that person right there. And that's a good way to start, but we want to pray more than just one time. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. We want to be praying without ceasing, continuously praying. So one reason is that we're prone to forget. Not only are we prone to forget when we say we'll pray for someone, we are prone to forget the goodness of God. In Deuteronomy 6:12, we read this: "Then take care lest you forget the Lord, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery." Such a big, momentous event in the life of the people, and God says, be careful that you don't forget it. And it can be easy for us to look back and say, I am confident that if I and my people had been enslaved for centuries, and then God miraculously delivered us, I wouldn't forget. But you would. Certainly it would not be a true, and if he's not saying that you'll never even think of it, but it's that as you're going through your daily life, you'll forget the goodness of God, what he has done. It won't be on your mind. We are prone to forget. So it's a good reason to set up monuments to help us pray. The second is we reap what we sow. Galatians 6:7-8 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life." What I'm presenting to you tonight, what I'm proposing to you tonight, is an investment in dedication to prayer. Not only will it help you remember to pray, but it's that sowing and reaping. You're giving yourself over to reminders to pray and it will help you become a more fervent prayer. Now, the third part, and this will make more sense as we go, it's fun. And I know it might sound dorky, but what I'm presenting to you tonight, I believe is fun. It's a third benefit to it. So, as it comes to the biblical idea of making monuments, it's a thing that's commanded at times in the Old Testament. And I want to look at one of those examples in Joshua chapter 4. Joshua 4, I'm going to read verses 1 through 8 and then 19 through 24. So just as a reminder, the Israelites had spent all that time in slavery in Egypt. God miraculously brings them out of that, delivers them. Then he brings them up to the edge of the promised land. They're too afraid to go in. They're like, look at all the big guys and all the harmful things in there where there's no way we can do this. So God says, fine, you're not going to. Then they try to anyway against him, but he ends up putting them in the desert to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. At the end of that, Moses dies, hands over the reins to Joshua. Joshua leads the people into the promised land, and that's the scenario that we find ourselves in Joshua chapter 4. Joshua chapter 4, verse 1. When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, take 12 men from the people, from each tribe a man, and command them, saying, take 12 stones from here out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priest's feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed, to a man from each tribe, and Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take up, each one of you, a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, when your children ask in time to come, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. And skipping to verse 19. The people came out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped at Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the people of Israel, when your children ask their fathers in times to come, what do these stones mean? Then you shall let your children know, Israel passed over this Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan until you passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over, so that all the people of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. So in this story, this narrative from Joshua chapter 4, we see three reasons why God instructed the people to build this monument. The first, just very simply, is it was to be a reminder. Joshua 4, verse 7. So at the end, these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. It's a reminder to them of what God had done. The second reason would be an opportunity to explain to others, as specifically their children, as their children would come to them and say, what do these stones mean to you? In verses 6 and 7, and then again in 21 and 22, you would then have the opportunity to say, these stones remind us that our God delivered us in this miraculous way. And the third reason was that it would be a sign to the world. Look at verse 24 again. So that the hand of the Lord, so that all the peoples, sorry, I can't read tonight, I don't know why. So that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, and that you might fear the Lord your God forever. Not just a reminder to the nation of Israel and to their children, but to the entire world. So how do we get from this narrative to prayer? That's not the point of this passage. I'll be clear about that. This is not me saying Joshua chapter 4 commands us to pray in this way. But there's some carryover into our prayer life that I think is beneficial. First, the people were given a reminder. We already talked about being prone to forget to pray when we say we're going to, prone to forget what God has done, and it serves as a reminder. So a monument, and we'll get to the end of practically what monuments might be for us, but a monument will serve to remind us to pray. It might be something that just says, oh, when I see this, I'm praying for this thing. So very simply, helps us to remember. Secondly, it gives us an opportunity to explain to others. And again, as we get into more practical ideas for monuments, this will make more sense. But just as the children would see these 12 stones and say, what does this mean? Why is this here? Some of the monuments that we can have give our families the same opportunity to say, Dad, why do you have this on your desk? Why is this in your drawer? Why is this in your car? You say, it reminds me to pray, or it reminds me of this good thing that God did. And when I see this, I give thanks to him. Something like that. And then third, it's a sign to the world. Same thing. Why is this here? Gives you that opportunity. So some potential monuments. One thing is just to begin with existing items and structures. Now, again, that would obviously not be an application from Joshua chapter 4 because they were commanded to build one. But there's two things that I remember that kind of started me in this idea of these monuments. The first is not even really a structure or something to look at, but we had a friend in the church who videotaped their, I guess recorded, it's not really videotaping anymore, recorded their little son in the back seat singing a pop song with the radio. And it was really funny. The kid's belting it out, and it was really cool. But I didn't know that song before that, so I just naturally associated that song with that family. And I just, for whatever reason, one day I heard it in the store or something, and it made me think of them. And since it made me think of them, I decided to pray for them. And I said, all right, here's the thing. From now on, every time I hear this song, I'm going to pray for my friend. Now, I can't say that I've been faithful to that to my entire life since then. It was for a long time until my family members started playing that song on a regular basis, and then it kind of lost that special connotation. But that was for a while at least, and now even periodically, a monument that it reminded me to pray for that friend. And then they would come to mind and just pray whatever would come to mind for them. Secondly, that led to me kind of developing that concept in my mind that there were certain things I would associate with different people and say, when that comes to mind, I'll pray for that person, or different items that would make me pray for maybe just a reminder of something. So I remember we were in Mexico and talking to our dear friend Oscar, driving around, and we were crossing a bridge. We were having a conversation. I said, hey, I asked him, whenever you cross this bridge, will you remember to pray for me? Asking him to do that same thing. So it could be something that's already there, and you're going to say, when I see this, when I hear this, whatever it is, this is going to be my reminder to pray for this person, pray for this thing, whatever. You can start simply like that. Secondly, you might need to do something new, which is more to the point of the passage that we looked at. So when I think especially of like the monument to have the opportunity to explain to others, children, or to point to as a sign to the world, I think of my clipboard at PDI. PDI is a warehouse in I don't know if it's technically Des Moines or Ankeny. I don't remember now. But in the near where I went to school and my end of my college years and first couple of years of marriage, that's where I worked. I typically drove pallet jacks, forklifts, that kind of stuff. And one of the things when you start there is you're given a clipboard with magnets on the back to lay it on top of the big battery of your pallet jack. And that's how you showed everyone that was your pallet jack. So most of us would decorate and put stuff on our clipboards. After a while, if you worked there long enough, you'd end up with two because some of the jobs would require you to have a clipboard you were using, and then you'd keep one on your equipment that you were claiming it. So on mine, there are many things. There are some comics on there, and of course, some Bears and Cubs memorabilia. I remember when Lucy was born, I couldn't wait to put a picture of her on my clipboard to let the world know, at least the PDI world know, that I was a father. But one of the things that I had put on there was my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes, I should say, but one that's always meant a lot to me from the first time I heard it in a song, that said, the beauty of grace is that it makes life not fair. And I had a couple other things on there that were faith-related, but that's the one that really stands out. And it stands out because I remember one day I was working, and I had parked my pallet jack next to the office, and there was a friend of mine and then one of the girls that worked there were working. I think they were receiving incoming trucks. And he comes up to me a little while later, and he's like, your clipboard is a really good testimony. And I was like, what? And he said, well, she saw that statement, and she was asking what that means, and I had an opportunity to explain it to her. So even those things that was not designated for that. I didn't put that on my clipboard to remind me to pray, but I think you can see clearly the application there. If you might have a reminder, and maybe it's something on your desk. Maybe you have a little memento with a Bible verse on it or something. And that gives people that pass by the opportunity to say, what is that? And you can say, every time I see that, it reminds me to pray. thanking God for his grace, or whatever it is that you've associated with that. So it's that opportunity. Or I remember one time, again, this is not a direct application. I think it's a good illustration, but it's not direct. There was a time in my life things were very hard. Many times in life it seems like, but there's some hard stuff going on medically in our family, and there was a quote from one of my first teachers in Bible college at Word of Life, Wendell Calder. I think the very first time hearing him speak, he would have us all repeat back to him, "I will not quit. By God's grace, I can do it." And it was just that he's like, college is hard, you're studying, you have so much to do. When it gets tough, just remember this. And that quote stuck with me. And I was really struggling, working and stuff that was going on with Betsy at the time. And I ended up writing on my steering wheel in my car, "I will not quit. By God's grace, I can do it." And it was a constant reminder to me. Now, I didn't have any great interactions that I can share with that. I had some friends make fun of me, you know who you are, and even tell other people about it because I thought it was silly. But for me, it was a great reminder. And I have done stuff like that with Post-it notes or something else, sticking it in a prominent spot, say, "I need to remember to pray for this." So that's another way that you can have that thing in front of you that has that reminder for you, excuse me, but then gives you the opportunity to explain it to others. So this may be a reminder of what God has done. So I've mostly been focusing on, like someone that you remember to pray for, something like that. And this could be something new, or it could go back, back to the things you already have in your house. This was a little more intentional to the point when Betsy and I had our 10th anniversary in 2017. I asked someone in our church that does a great job making signs. I think I had seen a sign on advertised, and it had like details of that marriage, like how long they had been married and the amount of the children they had and some other things. So I just had a list of significant events, and I said, "Can you make a sign like this?" And I gave that to Betsy for her anniversary, and I wanted that to be able to remember what God had done and what God had brought us through. And I would see that, and from time to time when I see that, it's a reminder to me to pray and thank God for that. I almost did tonight, instead of focusing on the monuments, just on thankfulness again, because we can't become thankful enough. We can't thank God enough for all that He has done for us. So it might be like that. And I just thought with those signs, how many of us in our house, collectively, all of CBC, how much signage is in our houses? How many reminders of God's goodness do we have in the pictures of our family and the signs that you get from Hobby Lobby or make on a Friday night women's study, or not study, but women's activity together? Use those things or make new ones to be monuments to prayer. And one of the things that I think is important for us to remember that we probably would like to gloss over, and it kind of even goes back to those statements I was saying earlier. In our nation, we want to tear down the monuments of the times that we don't want to remember. And I don't want to weigh in on as whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. But in our own lives, we might want to do the same thing. And to some extent, that could be good. There might be things that it's not good to dwell on. But we do need to remember our life before Christ. We do need to remember what God has brought us through. We might be tempted to move beyond this. I don't even want to think about those things that I did. And maybe you don't dwell on those things. That's not my point. But Ephesians 2:11 and 12 says, "Therefore remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh, called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, which is made in the flesh by hands. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of the promise, having no hope and without God in the world." It's good to have reminders of what we are, what we were, and who we were before Christ, because it's on that backdrop, and even though I'm inverting the order of the passage, that Ephesians 2:1 through 3, it continues in Ephesians 2:1 through 3, "And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind." These things to remember what we are apart from God's work in our life, who we were before the grace of God reached to us. And that passage finishes with this in Ephesians 2, starting in verse 4. one of those amazing but God passages. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, and raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might show the immeasurable riches of his grace in kindness toward us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his right workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. We remember what we were, who we were, before being saved by grace, which causes us to overflow with praise, being in Christ. So some of those memorials might be reminders of that very thing. So again, these could be anything. It could be something that you see regularly. Could be a sign that you put in your house, maybe a note in your car, maybe even as much as defacing your own property and writing on your steering wheel. Something like a clipboard at work, if you have such a thing. Something that you keep in your pocket. I know many people keep those pocket crosses or pocket coins for different things. It could be a picture strategically placed on your desk, on your nightstand, on your dresser, in your car again. An old ball cap placed somewhere, an object in the top drawer of your toolbox. But I encourage you to find things to remind you, some monuments that you can put up to remind you to pray. As you need to figure out what the best thing that works for you. When someone asks you to pray, you're again back to the beginning. You're at church on Sunday, and someone says, "Please pray for this. I have this going on in my life." You don't want to forget. Maybe the best thing is to right there, pull out your phone, and put some reminders in. A little bit different than a monument, but it serves that purpose. Maybe you need to, as soon as they say that, say, this person is, just for example, it'd be really easy here. A big St. Louis Cardinals fan. Every day I drive down the highway and I see Busch Stadium on my right when I go to work. So whenever I see Busch Stadium going and coming from work, I'm going to pray for that person. Start associating those things, using them as monuments to pray for people. Then put up those other reminders as well. Have things strategically placed around your house, around your office, around your car, whatever, to be reminded of the goodness of God, what he's brought you through, who you were before you knew him, so that when you see those things, you remember to pray in thankfulness to him, praise him for the attributes of who he is. So thank you all for joining me tonight, and have a good one. God bless.